I love Ninjago theories. I think that is no secret, a lot of my channel is based around that. But the thing that I also love is hearing what your guys' theories are in regards to the show. Because it's really interesting to see other perspectives, and it definitely does lead to the innovation of a lot of Ninjago theories. When more theories are circulated throughout the community, I do think it is an overall net positive. So I have gone out of my way for a very long time now to talk about your guys' Ninjago theories, and you guys never fail to deliver on them, and this is no different. Because today, like always, we are going through 5 Ninjago theories that you guys have. These are mainly based around the end of Season 3 Part 2 going into Season 4. But the thing is that they all definitely are very interesting to see. And honestly, does spark a lot of curiosity in regard to my own theories when it does come to the show. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to be taking a look at 5 more Ninjago theories and seeing what we think about the interpretations that you guys have come up with. And like always, if you guys do have your own Ninjago theories, feel free to leave them down in the comments down below. I always find myself going back to the previous video to find these comments, because that is exactly where I found these theories. But let me not waste any more of your time, and let's take a look at your Ninjago theories. The first one is coming from Source Only Blood. Hello my friend, and your theory is Raz's master is the last Source Only. His race was killed by the Source Dragons during the Oni and Dragon War and was so powerful they locked him in the void, and he wants revenge and will use the Oni masks to do so. Now I really do like this theory, but I do have one very small issue with it. For one, of course, it does rely on the general theory of the Source Only, and if you haven't checked out my video in regards to that, you should definitely do so. But the thing is that for one, we have to accept the idea that the Source Only exists, and personally speaking, I honestly kind of do, so I do like that. And honestly, when you do take that into account, it actually does kind of make sense to believe that a Source Only would be Raz's master. Honestly, it does rely on a lot of different things being confirmed, but I do like the premise of it. Because it would lead back into the whole divide of the Oni and the Dragon, which I do think is a concept that they should revisit within Ninjago. It hasn't really been visited fully since the Oni trilogy, so bringing it back up would be nice, especially considering the implications that we've had in Dragon's Rising. The only thing I disagree with is the fact that you believe that he will use the Oni masks to be able to do so, but the thing is that 2 of the 3 of them are destroyed. Vengeance is the only Oni mask that is actually still around. Remember, Deception and Hatred were destroyed in Season 9. So the thing is that it would also rely on the idea that the Source Oni would be able to retrieve the pieces of the Oni masks and be able to restore them to their original function. So whilst I do really like this theory, and I do think there's a lot of interesting implications that come behind it, it does rely on a lot of hypotheticals. But don't get me wrong, I do like the theory, and to an extent it would be cool because it would make the Source Only a reality. But the thing is, like I said, it just has so many hypotheticals and so many what ifs, and I do think it would have already been established by now. But thank you very much, Source Only Blood. I really do like the theory, and I do hope it does come to be. I just really do question how they would go about it. Theory 2 is coming from JWP Studios. Hello my friend, and you have 2 theories. The first one is concerning Jay. What if the way to heal his goodness is with the Well of the Lost? It kept Raz alive, and it also helps move souls on. What if Jay drinks it and it heals his shattered soul, and possibly heals whatever head damage he has that prevents him from remembering his life? Honestly, I do like this one, and I do think there's a lot of argument for it. But again, in similar vein, there is one problem. And that is the fact that as of Season 3 Part 2, the Well of the Lost is presumably gone. The thing is that it fell when Thunderfang was defeated, and it does seem to have the implication that it is no longer there. Now of course there is a broader implication that does come from that, such as how do souls move on, but the thing is that as it stands, unless it's re-established that the well is back, I don't think they'd be able to use this outcome. But it does honestly make a lot of sense. If this elixir essentially is just what heals souls, and like I said, if his soul is shattered, it does make a lot of sense contextually. I do think there's a really good argument, and it is a really good point from you. Because like you said, if ultimately his soul is shattered, what if fixing his soul is the way to do it, and that elixir has been established to do that? Honestly, I do like this one, and I wouldn't be very shocked if this is not what they do. But let's look at your second theory. You said this one isn't completed, but of course we'll have a look. You said, after watching the Casket of Bones episode, the thing that the Skull Titan thing said about strength makes me speculate that Raz's master is somehow tied to the underworld, or perhaps is from there, because we've seen that Raz's master is obsessed with strength. Again though, I do think this relies on a lot. The thing about this theory is the fact that it relies on the idea that no other beings from no other realms would take a fascination with strength, and I just don't simply believe that's the case. Strength invites challenge, challenge invites strength. The thing is that it's a fairly universal constant. I mean, that is why there is a source dragon of strength. Of course, it's something that embodies every single realm. So whilst I do like the reasoning you have, I don't think that line has too much significance in terms of Raz's master. But honestly, I would love to see this theory more fleshed out. Obviously, it's been a while since you've commented, so if you are more established with it, I would love to see it. But thank you very much, JWP Studios. Honestly, there's been a lot here to think about, and I really do like the J theory, so thank you very much, my friend. The third theory is coming from Monkey King. Hello, my friend, and you also have a Raz Master theory, and your one is that it's the Source Dragon of Balance. The Source Dragon of Balance would make sense as the glowing eyes Raz has when he talks to his master mirrors the way Lloyd's eyes glowed when he talked to the Source Dragons. Plus, it would be a good link between Lloyd and Raz if they are both affiliated with the Source Dragons. I honestly didn't initially see this one, but I'm seeing it more and more now you brought it up. Initially speaking, I didn't really see the theory, mostly down to the fact that glowing eyes isn't exclusive to Raz's master. Of course, we have had many instances over the years where a character may have glowing eyes for whatever reason. The thing that honestly is catching me out is the fact that both Raz and Lloyd do have something that is fairly unique to them, which is when they do enter the state of Raz's master's void or Lloyd with the Source Dragons, they both levitate in the air. And that is something, as far as I'm aware, is exclusive to Lloyd and Raz. So honestly, when you take that into consideration, I am actually starting to see your point. I do think there is reason to believe that there is some sort of link to the Source Dragons, I just don't believe it's in the way that a lot of people think, aka Raz's master's the Source Dragon of Strength. Honestly, motion has more of an argument than strength for me at this point, because I just simply don't believe the strength theory. But honestly, there is the potential for it to be a massive coincidence. Remember, for example, the first theory from Source Only Blood, he mentioned the idea that it could be a Source Only. So what if in that situation, they just have simply the same ability? There are ways to explain it away, and of course this is entirely circumstantial. But honestly, with the current information that we have, there is reason to believe that there is some sort of link. But that could very easily be established to be the contrary. But honestly, like I said, I'm kind of liking this one now. Because, like you said as well, it could be a very good way to link Lloyd and Raz back together. Of course, there seems to be a lot of similarities and mirroring between the two of them, and I do really appreciate that they're doing that. So having this link with the Source Dragons would be extremely interesting. I would just hope that they did it correctly. But thank you very much, Monkey King. I actually am liking this theory the more and more I'm sat with it. Theory 4 is actually coming from Red Ninja Red. Hello Reds, how are you? And you said, for one, banger video, thank you very much, but you said your theory is that Zane and Pixel were written out of part 2 because it would be too confusing to explain if they had souls or not, as the temple guards are said to not have souls. But shouldn't Zane have to have a soul because he has an elemental power? I think trying to integrate them into the plot might have been too confusing, so I understand why they did it. And honestly, I completely agree with what you think, and also I further agree with what you're saying about Zane. Honestly, in retrospect, it does make a lot of sense to believe that they simply wrote Zane and Pixel out down to the fact that they just didn't know how to handle them. The thing is that it never has made any sense to me that Pixel was introduced just to immediately write her back out. And of course, in the case of Zane, we have had the ninja just basically do nothing within a season before. So to completely eliminate Zane was definitely a very unique factor. So it does make sense that there is some sort of external reason as to why. And if they don't want to explain whether or not they have souls, that honestly does make a lot of sense. But like you said, the thing is that by all accounts, Zane should have a soul, and I think it's basically being confirmed that he does. Zane is too human to be simply just a ninjroid. The thing about the Temple Guard is the fact that they don't really have much of a personality. Zane has everything that you would expect from a human. He's more human than some of the humans. That's the thing. So ultimately speaking, he should have a soul, and I do think to an extent, Pixel also does because of her bond with Zane. Pixel again is too human to simply be a ninjroid. But like you said, I do think Dragon's Rising simply didn't want to explain it. But the problem is that they wouldn't have had to because only Cole was the one that got hollowed. In the end, I do agree with you. I do think there was clearly some sort of reason as to why they got rid of them, and your reason does make sense. But I'm just simply not happy with it because it did lead to the consequence of no Zane, and Zane is just in this state of limbo from here onwards. But thank you very much, Red. I really do like this, and I really do think it provides an interesting light on how they are handling Zane. It's just disappointing that it might actually be true. But this does lead us into the final theory for today, and it comes from Rusted Bubble. Hello, my friend. And you said, I have a theory that the Forbidden Five souls returned to their bodies when Thunderfang was destroyed by the Focus Arc Dragon, but their elemental powers will be gone, because when Kai was stabbing Spectral Dragonians, he said he hopes that it frees their souls, and when Thunderfang does, Noct, Rox, and Drix poofed away in the same way as when the Dragonians were struck by the reveal blade. And again, I really do like this idea. The thing is that unfortunately it has been confirmed that the Forbidden Five aren't done yet. They will return in some capacity. When and where we don't exactly know, but the thing is that it has been confirmed to be the case. So in that regard, this theory does make a lot of sense. If Thunderfang did end up unintentionally freeing their souls, and the lack of Thunderfang means they don't have their power, it would be very interesting to see how the Forbidden Five are with the lack of elemental ability. It'll be an interesting way to develop their characters, or more specifically give their characters something. The thing is, in the scenario where we know that they are going to return in some capacity, it would just be nice if they actually did have some sort of effect for what they've already had done to them. It would be nice if there was some sort of consequence and they weren't just basically the same after the event of Thunderfang. I just hope that there's an actual reason for them to return, and this honestly would be a decent way to go about it. I do think there's a lot of reason as to how this could be the case, and I do honestly like your backing and the use of what Kai was saying, and also the link between the destruction of the Dragonians in comparison to the Forbidden Five. So on an overall, I am actually really seeing this theory, and honestly, I do think this could really be the case. I really like this idea, and if they don't implement it, I think they'll have a hard time trying to beat that out. So thank you very much, Rusted Bubble. I do like this theory. But those are the theories that I wanted to take a look at for today. I think they were really interesting, and I do think a lot of them have a lot of validity to them. Of course, like I said, some of them are definitely a lot more circumstantial, but I don't think that is bad by any account. I do think it's a very interesting hypothetical in every single one of these theories, and some of them, honestly, I do simply hope to be the case, such as the J one, the weird reason as to why Zane and Pixel weren't around, and also this solution for the Forbidden Five's return. I think all of them have a lot of really good reason to exist, so I do thank every single one of you for submitting these theories, and a thank you to everyone in general. Those of you who didn't make it into the video, I promise you I did read your theories. It's just these were the ones I wanted to talk about the most. And that is about it for today, you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and like I said, if you do have your own Dragon's Rising theories, please leave them in the comments down below. If they're about season 4, if they're about a season previous, I mean, they could be about the original era of the show if you wanted to. They're really interesting to read, and I would love to hear what you guys have to think. But if you do have those theories, definitely leave them down below. And if you do enjoy the videos, please consider subscribing. I love talking about Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member. You could join the legends on screen right now. And a particular shout out to Grandmaster Sensei 28208 for being an eternal legend. Thank you very much, my friend. But that is about it for today, you guys. And thank you very much for watching. Take care. Okay, bye!